Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for September the 19th, 2012. Tropics, kind of interesting today. We have another system in the subtropics trying to develop. It's been that kind of a year. You get some of this energy out here in the mid-levels that is able to work its way down to the surface over that fairly warm water that's sitting out here, above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, of course, we have Tropical Storm Nadine lashing the Azores here. Really brushing is a better word. It's not too much more than a nuisance. Then we have a dry tropical wave moving off of Africa, curled up nicely, a little low pressure area, but this dry air persists out over the tropical Atlantic. So all of these tropical waves that are coming off, I say all of them, most of them, very weak, and they're not amounting to much. As we look at a close-up of Nadine, these are the Azores Islands, and Nadine sitting around the vicinity, bringing some of those bands across the area. As I mentioned, more of a nuisance than anything. It's a large circulation, very slow-moving system, not a lot of deep convection associated with Nadine right now, so not a very big problem, just a nuisance to the area, bringing some heavy rains, squally weather, and the occasional, let's get that out of there, the occasional rough seas. Looking at the wider shot of the Atlantic Basin, you can really tell this influence of the dry air and the unfavorable MJO pulse that we're going through right now having a big influence on the tropics. As very little in the way of convection noted anywhere. Weak tropical wave here, maybe another one in here. And then this is the stalled frontal boundary, the washed out cold front that brought all the rain and severe weather to portions of the east yesterday. We'll watch this end of it. Sometimes these can fester, these stalled fronts, and become tropical cyclones, so we'll see what happens with that. And here is this upper level, mid-level system that's trying to work its way down to the surface. Bermuda right there. This is forecast to drift back to the west over time, so Bermuda may be in line for some squally weather over the next few days as this develops. It may be more subtropical in nature since it does not have the heat and the input from the deep tropics to begin with. This would be more subtropical in nature by definition and by its, just the origins of it, where it began, not coming out of the deep tropics this time and developing north of 20 degrees of latitude. Instead, this system is already sitting out here, and they're usually larger and their wind fields are more spread out, these subtropical systems, but nonetheless, it would get a name if it develops enough, and that name would be Oscar. Right now, the MJO pulse, not very favorable at all for our part of the world, the Atlantic Basin anyway. It's favoring the Western Pacific now in regions 6 and 7, and the research has shown that once it moves into phases 8, and especially 1 and 2, these are the areas that more strongly favor Atlantic development, and this is where the MJO went through back in August, and that's when we saw Isaac develop. So there's a pretty good correlation there, and the GFS forecasting the MJO to remain in the Western Pacific area over the next couple of weeks. The ECMWF forecast for the MJO, similar, although some of its ensemble members, each of these little yellow lines in here, represents an ensemble member, a different member of the forecast group with different variables so that you get a different output. And it's indicating a couple of these ensemble group members that maybe some of these come around here. We call these spaghetti plots. So some of these spaghetti strings coming into region 8. The bottom line is I think the next couple of weeks is going to be rather tranquil in the Atlantic Basin. Now that'll more than likely change once we get to the first week of October and beyond. Eventually, the MJO will have to move out of the Western Pacific. I mean, it doesn't have to, but logic, I think, would suggest that it will. You typically see it go around the globe about once every 40 days or so, and it should head back into this direction over time and give the Atlantic Basin one last shot at some development in the deep tropics after the first week of October. Looking at the next 5 days on today's GFS model, this is Nadine out here. This is the system east of Bermuda right now, and you can tell both of them fairly weak overall. Cold air, though, starting to come into the continent as we get closer to fall. This is day 2 and day 3. The system out here east of Bermuda weakens pretty substantially as a strong area of high pressure builds in. And you see that Nadine stays stuck out here near the Azores. And you got little weak impulses of energy that try to come across the Atlantic, other low pressure areas coming off. But with all that dry air out here and the unfavorable MJO pulse, I just don't see much happening. Finally, at day 4 and day 5, yes, Nadine still out here, circulating around in the eastern Atlantic like a lost dog or something, just trying to find its home. And then you can see this front draped across, and we'll watch down here along the tail end. You never know, like I mentioned, sometimes you do get development, as that is a focusing mechanism, an area of convergence already in the atmosphere, or a pre-existing area of disturbed weather is another way to look at it. And sometimes you do get development from those, but I don't see anything on the global models, and it's not just, it's not favorable right now. So good news all around. That's it. Tropics fairly benign for the almost the latter third of September. Good deal there. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth. HurricaneTrack.com is my website. I am always privileged to be able to produce these videos for Hurricane and Hurricane HD. It's my honor and privilege to do so. And with that being said, I'll see you again with another one tomorrow.